Good evening. Welcome to Unfortunate Victims. I am your host, Investigator Chandra Cleveland. Thank you for joining us tonight because tonight is going to be a really tough subject and it's important for all families to know. Tonight, we're going to talk about the story of Anaiah Walker. Anaiah Walker and the story of how it ended in a terrible tragedy that we need your help in finding out who murdered Anaiah Walker. And this evening, we have joining me is her mother, Sharika Buckley. So Sharika, thank you so much for taking this time to talk to me about Anaiah and making other parents aware of what happened with Anaiah and how we all can help from now. We want to start off, Sharika, by you telling us what was Anaiah like? Tell us about Anaiah and her beautiful life.
Well, thank you for having me on, Chandra. Anaiah, when Anaiah passed or was murdered, she was 16 years old. But prior to that, Anaiah was a very young, vibrant, independent little girl. She enjoyed studying DNA mutations for fun. She aspired to be a phlebotomist or an EMT. And she did like acting. She kind of wanted, really young, kind of wanted to be, on TV. So as she grew into her teenage years, she wanted to be in the medical field. And that's kind of what she aspired to do. But she was very close to her sister. They were like best friends. And she was just a regular, normal, fun teenager.
Yes, and I did have the opportunity to meet her sister because that's how you and I got in contact with each other because she asked if I would help to find Anaiah. So yes, I know that it's just really tearing her heart apart because she told me that was her best friend.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me, when did it seem like Anaiah's teenage years were becoming hazardous for her?
Well, Anaiah started to, just like many other teens, demonstrate some troubles in school, but it wasn't her initially. Anaiah was being bullied.
Mhm.
We lived in an area that was really culturally blended, but the school that Anaiah went to, the school district that Anaiah attended, was predominantly Caucasian. And so at that time, when Anaiah entered middle school, she wore her hair natural. She wore an afro, and she was very proud of it. And it was, her choice to wear her hair that way. And she'd wear it up like in a bun. And she was being teased about her natural hair choice. Initially, that's where it started. And then they started using racial slurs against her. My eldest daughter went to the school as well, and she experienced some racial issues, tension, but not what Anaiah had going on with actually racial slurs. There was more so just feelings of exclusion, if you will, that my eldest daughter experienced. And so I didn't really think it'd be a problem with Anaiah going, but Anaiah had a much different experience. And so she started to defend herself and kind of took on a more, it came on as more defensive tactics that she would have, but
right. I could understand that. She started defending herself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And over time, it turned into frustration, and then it kind of turned into, okay, Anaiah, it turns into aggression, and then it turned into, disrespect, and then it turned into rebellion. And so just to kind of give you an insight on that, there were some incidents at the school where there were some school kids that Anaiah knew that were being bothered by other kids. And Anaiah, after she started to become defensive and aggressive, she started taking up for them and getting into arguments with kids and getting into fights. And so, that led to me saying, okay, well, I seen that the academics were being affected. And when the academics were being affected and all the behavior in school, at my home, any type of electronics and access to the internet was a privilege. So my children at the time were 16 and they were, well, 15 and 13. And Anaya was going on 14 and my oldest daughter was going on 16. And so, being in my home, Anaya never had access to an actual cell phone that had apps. She didn't have a smartphone. She
Mhm.
had a regular cell phone that she can use just to make calls and texts. But when her grades were good, we gifted her a tablet. Both of my children were gifted tablets. And so she was able to access the internet with our permission, but to access books, games. She was not allowed to have social media because I said that she was too young. My oldest
Mhm.
daughter was. They're 4.5 years apart. So she aspired to be on the internet and wanted to have access to social media pages like her older sister and other
Mhm.
older kids around her. And she
Yeah.
just wasn't at the age group that we would allow her to do that.
Mhm.
So when I took the tablets, we started seeing more rebellion, more disrespect, more grades failing, and I didn't allow any access from anything. And so what then I then seen was theft from other students to access the internet, like stealing of their phones, um,
Mm.
and theft from in the home, stealing other phones that weren't like in use. They were just old phones, but we would catch her with other devices that weren't in use to just access the internet. So then I'm like,
Right.
what is going on? Like, what is this fascination with this, internet? And still not understanding and knowing that at that time, Anaya was accessing social media pages and she had quite a few that she had established. So this was her reason for wanting the access so badly. So
Gotcha.
fast forward, there was an incident in school that was a big argument, and there was a threat
Mhm.
made, and the school administrator called me and said, Ms. Rhymes, we're having Anaya. There's a student has been threatened. And I thought, okay, they're gonna expel Anaya because this student has said that she's afraid to come to school.
Mhm.
And it was toward the latter part of the year. School here is out in like May 30th or something like that. It was like May 12th. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to pull Anaya out because school is almost over. And we had already been discussing, I'll, kind of go back. Anaya's father has a custody arrangement that allows him the off school time. So any school holidays, summer breaks is a time that she's with her father, and he resides in
Okay.
San Diego, California.
Mhm.
So he and I had discussed with Anaya's behavior and things going out throughout the year when she came there for the summer that, of course, they would talk about it, they would address it. And Anaya wanted to actually live with her father. She wanted to live with him when she became a freshman in high school. And at this time, she was
Mhm.
a middle school seventh grader. And so I agreed that she could move with him when she became a freshman.
Mhm.
And when the summer came and this incident happened and this child was afraid or threatened or whatever that the allegations were, um, I said to Naya, and Anaya, father, and I decided that she's going to go to the summer just like she normally would, and she'd spend the summer there. And then we discussed the summer went kind of okay. There was still some issues with rebellion and disrespect and a little deceit, but it went well enough for him to say, well, I want to try to have her go to school here. And I said, I
Mhm.
think that's a good idea because at this
Mhm.
point, Anaya really, in my opinion, needed the balance. She needed the male balance in her life. She needed an outlet. She needed an area where she could be, there could be inclusion. The school that Anaya was going to, unfortunately, she was had to go to that school because it's the district school for her. Other than that, I have to go through an open enrollment process to transfer
Right.
school.
Right.
Then there
Mhm.
was a situation where I'd have to also provide transportation for her to go to a school outside of her district, which at the
Mhm.
time I wasn't able to do because of my work schedule. So it was like, okay, well, if you can live with your father, go to another school, live in an area that's a little more, well, go to a school that's in an area that's more culturally blended, then
Mhm.
maybe you can be successful. And I thought that would be really helpful for her. The
Okay. So how did
educator.
it end with her and her father? Did they get along? Did she make it through the school year?
Well, actually, no, she did not. Her and her father and her stepmother and her stepbrother, they all had, issues with the transition. Anaya continued to have issues in school. There was acts of violence in his home, he claimed. There was acts of violence at the school with fights. And so Adrian contacted me. Her father wanted to send her back shortly after. She arrived in May of 2017. And he contacted me in November of 2017. And he said, look, I'm done. I want her to come back home. This isn't working.
Oh,
I can't
wow.
handle this anymore. And I said to him, I said, Adrian, I need you to keep in mind that we just switched, we just transferred her schools. I've sent you all school records. If we send her back, I can place her back in that school, but the situation still stands. I need you to stick to our agreement and keep her throughout the school year because, I'm just not about having that instability, switching the kids'
Right.
schools. It was only November. School had just started in like August. And so I was just like, no, we're not going to do that. And so he waited again about a month later, and no, in December he contacted me again. He said, "I am not doing this anymore." He was ready to put her out. He actually said he wanted to put her in the streets, and he and
Oh,
I had
wow.
an argument.
He put his own daughter in the streets?
I got very upset with him, and I told him if he put my daughter out, that I was coming to California to his house, and it was going to be a problem. I said, "You can't. This is not a." I said, "I'm not. She's not a package. You can't do it. This is not a return to sender situation where you can, say, okay, well, I'm fed up now." I said, "Listen, I've had the calls to the school. I've had the disruption in my home. I get it. I understand what you're going through, but this is really where." She needs you. And to me, it was more
Right.
a cry out for help and
Right.
more attention.
Yes,
And
that's what I was
wasn't,
about to say.
yeah,
Yes.
he had just started seeing some of the behaviors that I was seeing in school. He had just started, getting the calls from the administrators, having to get off work. And I'm like, while I sympathize with you, this is your daughter. You have to keep, it's not like that was the only other corrective action plan that I had as a parent was to involve the other parental unit. So,
Mhm. So what
um,
did he do after that when you said no, you could not take her at that time?
so ultimately, Adrian, he decided he lives in San Diego, California. He packed Anaya up, her and her things. He drove to Arizona and he came to my house and I wasn't home. And he did let me know. He said, "I'm coming to Phoenix." And I said, "Well, if you come, I'm not going to be home." I had already made plans. I didn't know exactly when he was coming, but I had anticipated he was coming over that weekend. And I told him
Mhm.
I was like, "I'm not going to be home. So I don't know what you're going to do, but you need to figure it out. You need to not be trying to bring her back home." And we just kind of kept exchanging words. And eventually he called me and I had so many missed calls. I wasn't aware of it. I was in an area that didn't pick up service. And
Mhm.
by the time I powered my phone on and I had service again, I got a whole bunch of messages, text messages, alerts coming up from voicemails, and it's from him and the Phoenix Police Department.
Oh,
And when
wow.
I got home, there was a card in my door from the Phoenix Police Department and a carbon sheet paper from the Arizona Department of Children and Family Services. And the
Mhm.
card basically was Phoenix Police, and the carbon copy sheet was saying that they had Anaya, and that it read that there was no parental person there and available to take custody of the child, and that there was a cause of neglect, and that her other parent had signed it. He said that he did not want to take her back to California, and that he was pretty much done parenting.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and so I got the card. The next day, I called, contacted. It was Sunday. I'll never forget. Sunday, December 17th, 2017. The
Mm.
following day was a Monday, a business day. I contacted everyone that I had a number for, and they reached me out to the social workers that was on the case. And I set up
Mhm.
a meeting to go to meet with them and Anaya and to retrieve my child. I'm just like, okay, I'm here. This is not, there's no neglect. I wasn't home. And when I got to the meeting, Adrian had already went back to San Diego, so he wasn't there in person. He was on a conference call. They included him and they asked us, is like a family meeting, like a family conference. And they asked
Mhm.
us, what is going on? Why is it that Adrian has dropped her off? How did we come involved? What's going on? And Adrian went on to explain that there had been acts of rebellion, acts of violence, acts of um, dishonesty, and all kind of things going on in his home, and he wanted to send her back, and I wasn't there, and he left her in the custody of Child Protection Services.
Okay, so that explains how Anaya got in Child Protective Services, because most people will think she's in Child Protective custody because of something of abuse from a parent, or you allowed something to happen to her. She was there because her father didn't want her back into his home anymore, and you were out of town at work, so he just assigned her to the state.
Correct. Right? Well, I wasn't out of town. I was in Phoenix, but I was not reachable at the time that they were on the scene. So they took her into the state custody, temporary custody. And so when we had that meeting, they asked Anaya, well, what is your side of what's going on? Why did your father bring you here today? You know, ready to go home with your mom? And Anaya said to them in an open meeting that she knew that she was being rebellious towards her parents, and that her acts was defiant, and that she pretty much was saying, hey, look, I don't see a problem with my behavior being, you know, to me, it's not violent. To me, I'm not doing these things. And they looked around at each other and they said, we're going to keep her. It didn't become a matter of that I was neglectful. You know, initially it was stated as neglect from the parents, but I fought the state of Arizona to keep my name off the state registry because I didn't neglect anyone. I wasn't home, and I won my case. And so the end result was they stipulated it. They said that not for her father. He may or may not be on the Arizona child registry for neglect and abuse. I don't know, but I know that I fought to keep myself off of it. And what they ended up doing was stipulating on a child's behaviors, stating that they were involved because of a conduct disorder and a conduct issue. And so many people don't know, but if you openly say that you will hurt yourself or others, and Anaya had been violent in her father's home, she had been violent in my home, she had been arrested for assault towards me, they decided we're going to keep her. She was a threat to herself and others at that point. And so they intervened. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because it is important that people understand not every child who was in the state custody is in the system because a parent may have been neglectful, or the home may have substance abuse, or there may be some type of form of neglect. It definitely wasn't the case for Anaya.
Right. So what happened with Anaya after that? After the state said, no, we're going to keep her. She's now awarded of the state. What happened with her actions after being awarded of the state?
So the plan was that Anaya was in temporary custody of the state, and that she had to continue to complete therapy. They wanted to do a reunification plan. And the reunification plan was that she comes home with me and that she does counseling by herself alone, address her issues, and then family counseling individually. So individual with me, individual with her father, and then us all together as a group. Well, 4 months later, in April of 2018, my daughter and another girl that was in a group home that they sent her to reside in during this time for the therapy, they ended up
the state placed her in. Okay.
Yeah, the state placed her in a group home, and she ended up running away from that group home with another young girl. And those girls ran away. And from what I understand and reading her journals and going through the case and understanding what happened to them after they ran away, was they were accessing the internet while they were in the group home. They were unsupervised. The ratio there is crazy. It's not appropriate. The amount of people that they have to children is really non-existent.
It always seems to be the case that the ratio and these group homes, where even another girl who may have issues of guidance and all of that meets another young lady and they end up doing something else. But the internet is a key component of guiding these girls down the wrong path. And for them to still have the internet a part of that group home, I always wonder, do they not get it that the internet is a part of these girls not staying on the straightened path?
Yeah, no one is monitoring not just the internet access that they have, like the Wi-Fi, but if these girls get a hold of a device like a cell phone or a tablet, or if they're on the computer, like you said, no one is monitoring what they're doing. As when she was home with me, I just mentioned Anaya did not have access to a telephone, like a smartphone. And when I found out that she was accessing sites that she didn't have any business accessing, we shut that down. We took all of the tablets and the devices away. We changed the Wi-Fi passcode, and that's what led to her, like kind of like the desperation of still getting to it. But it's an issue, and it's even more of an issue if no one is monitoring the children that
Yes.
have access. So
Yeah.
they met a group of guys off of the internet, and these guys that they met, they sex trafficked the children. It's in
Oh,
the news. There was a news article that came out that said that these girls were held for approximately 5 days, and they were
mm,
forced to sell their bodies on Backpage and sell drugs for the men, and they
wow.
were unless they made and generated $250 a day. And the girls got away, and they went to a Circle K gas station where they let a cashier clerk know what was going on, and that cashier contacted authorities.
Oh, wow. So they were able to get away, and the people who were sex trafficking them, they were arrested.
Yeah, so a couple of days later, the police, from my understanding, they did some type of sting operation and they did some
Mhm,
type of arrest. It wasn't at the hotel location where this happened, but they arrested them at another hotel nearby. They arrested two brothers, Jamal and Camille Pennington, at nearby motels for those offenses.
mhm. So after that was all over and they were able to arrest those guys, was Anaya able to make it to court right after that? Did she go back in the custody of social services? How did that work out?
So what actually ended up happening with Anaya is that when they arrested those guys, they also arrested Anaya because Anaya had been involved in a crime, a burglary that was not related to this incident. She had burglarized someone's home, so they put her in juvenile. They found her with another group of children that burglarized the home, and she was with them, and she was accomplice, and so they charged her with the same thing, and she
Mhm,
went to juvenile, and from juvenile, they basically set the same tone. They said, okay, we'd like for you to continue therapy. Now you have a sex traffic issue. We're going to include advocates and guardian ad litems and other individuals to support you in this case because now you're a sex traffic victim. So
mhm.
outside of the conduct issues that we were having and the other issues that they had identified, there was a new issue on top of it. And they wanted to now address the sex trafficking. And yes, she did go to court. These men were actually, the court proceedings hadn't started yet. It was
Mhm.
just kind of, we were just kind of entering COVID. And so these men hadn't started going to court, but these girls had given their testimonies to police and they had provided the information that they had needed. So these men
So
were
do you think, were there any, since the girls have given their information, their testimonies, their whereabouts or where they were there any threats made against the girls? Were these guys in lockup at that time, or were they able still to try and get to these girls through some mean or another?
Yeah, so each person that was arrested, there were a total of three individuals that were arrested. And one is a female. Her name is Aaliyah Barganer. She was arrested a year later, but each individual was arrested. They weren't released. They have been awaiting trial and the proceedings of their court cases. As of today, well, I'll rewind. The girls were afraid. They were afraid once the guys got arrested. They were terrified. They had made statements to the police that these men threatened them, threatened their lives. And then later, as the men had been waiting their court proceedings, they were heard on calls from the facility asking their children's moms to look for the girls. And so the attorneys and the guardian ad litems and the prosecutors, they all made the girls aware that these things had been said on a jail recording. And the girls were even more terrified after that.
I could
Uh,
only
the
imagine
men.
they're only 13, 14 at this time. And
Mhm.
to hear now that someone is actually looking for them not to be able to testify in person again during court, I could imagine they were very fearful.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And my daughter had shared with me that she wanted to leave the state of Arizona. She didn't want to be here anymore. She was afraid that she would be running. She was afraid she would run into someone she was forced to engage with at the
Mhm.
hotel, from Backpage or what have you.
Mhm.
She was
Mhm.
just afraid, even not just of them, but of, like she said, of someone I was
Right,
forced to
the
engage.
Johns who
Yeah,
she was sold to during
yeah.
that time.
And
Yes.
so it was a legitimate concern. And my daughter was just traumatized and afraid,
Mhm.
very much. She wanted to
Mhm.
leave the state of Arizona. She wanted Arizona Department of Children and Family Services to send her back to live with her father in California, which I was against.
Mhm. So after all of that, what happened with Anaya after that? Did she stay in juvie, or where did they put her after that?
Well, Anaya, after that, after she was arrested, she went into another group home and they wanted her to complete the therapy. She actually transferred to a girls almost academy here that we have called Mingus Mountain. And she was there for about 6 months as a treatment center. And it's
Mhm.
located right outside the forest. It's an area where the girls it's very remote, so they can't well, they can run away, but if you run away, you're going to be like in the forest. So it kind of deters the adolescents there from running away and leaving. They have to kind of deal with their problems. It's a beautiful area. It's mountainous, and they have a therapy. They can do horseback riding and things like that as a part of their
Mhm.
therapy. And so she was there. She was very successful with the 6 months that she was there. She
Oh, good.
had a GPA of 3.87, and she was
Good.
just ready to start her life. She was really, I read her journals, and it was, things that she documented majority of her time there. And she was eager to get out and become a teenager and get like a teenage summer job, and go back to school. She was going to school there, but she was anxious to get into a real school setting. And so she
Mhm.
journaled about that.
Okay. Okay. So, after all of that, after her going into that group home, wasn't it a time that she went missing again?
Well, after she went into the Mingus Mountain group home, she graduated. She was successful. They put her in a foster home, not a foster home, but a foster group home. And she was there. And there were several girls that had got caught smoking marijuana on the grounds. And I think that Anaya was accused. And it was around her birthday.
Mhm.
And she was going to be turning 15. And the state decided, Anaya asked, could she have a cell phone? And her father and I told the state, no, we're against it. Because this is what set the stage of everything that we just
Right,
discussed, of her
right,
having
right.
access, of meeting these men. We don't feel like she's ready. Unbeknownst to us, they allowed Anaya to have a cell phone. They granted it. They
Wow.
stated that she done well. She had completed Mingus Mountain program, and that they wanted to provide her with some type of reward, and that was their gift, that she could have a
Mm.
phone. 3 days after my daughter got the phone, she ran away.
Oh, wow. Wow. And what happened after that? How long was she gone when she ran away this time?
So that was in April, and we didn't hear back again until about June. And in June, she was cited. My daughter was successful with getting a hold of her via social media, establishing
Mhm,
fake pages to follow her. That was the
mhm.
only way that we would know that she was alive when she would run away, is by establishing fake pages, befriending her and watching her and just not saying anything, just
Right.
pretending to be someone else, just so we could know that she's alive. Because although she's listed as a missing child, she had been on probation as well because of the burglary. So she's still, they're looking for her, but they're not actively looking for the children. No one is
Right.
actively looking for the Department of Children and Family Services children that are missing, besides their parents and their loved
Mhm.
ones. Um, we found Anaya through social media, which is something that the authorities told us that they couldn't do. That my daughter, my eldest daughter, was successful in doing. She was successful at it multiple times in establishing multiple fake pages and finding
Mhm.
Anaya and befriending Anaya and saying, "Mom, she's just posted she's over here. Mom, she just posted that she's over here." And that was my only way of even knowing that my daughter was alive. I begged the authorities. I begged them, please, my daughter is posting she's here. Can you go into her Facebook page and find out where she
Right.
is? Can you track her? Can you?
Right.
No, they tell me, no, we cannot. Unless we can
Mhm.
prove a crime is being committed. Because I'll say this, running away is not a crime. The only
It's
reason
not.
that they were looking for Anaya is because she was considered at risk and because she was an absconder from probation. If Anaya had not been an absconder from probation, then they would have just put her on the missing child's website, exploiting missing children. But being a missing child and running away is not a crime, although being truant is a crime. And it's complete oxymoron. It's completely asinine. It's
It
completely
really is.
ridiculous. And they'll hold the parents accountable, but they won't help the parents find the children. And so,
Exactly.
and I actually had a sergeant stand in my living room and deliver this message to my daughter that running away was not a crime. And from that point on, we had running away action.
Well, when he did that, he actually gave her permission, like, okay,
Yeah,
I can run away. It ain't a crime. Nobody's going to be able to find me, or they're not going to be looking for me anyway.
Yeah. So she knew that, and she was being deliberately evasive by setting up pages that weren't in her name, by blocking everyone that was in the family, blocking associates. We went through major things just to even, locate her and find her. So, and actually what I did, and it was very difficult for me, was I blocked the pages that I knew she was on. And I did it because I knew that she was sitting back and watching from afar. And I wanted her to surface and find out what was going on. I didn't want her just being complacent with watching us from afar. I wanted her, if you want to know what's going on, come forward. Where are you? Where are you? We're looking for you, And so we spent a lot of time looking for her. And my daughter found her in June, and she made contact with her. And she asked her to turn herself in, come home, fix things. And Anaya just basically decided that she would make contact with my daughter. She would see her, and that she wouldn't come forward. She wouldn't bring herself around us so that she could take herself back to DCS. So, 2 months later, in August, she was found in a hotel room doing Operation Sting of a prostitution sting. And Anaya had said that she was involved in sex trafficking, but she wouldn't provide the police any details of who she was with and who she was working for, and any details or information. And so at that point,
and that was again at age 15.
Correct. Yep. Okay. And they arrested her. And they said they didn't want to arrest her, but they took her in on the warrant. So they didn't arrest her for the act and where she was. The police officer said when he found out how old she was, he didn't want any type of thing like that on her record. And so he just wanted to bring her in. And and so they brought her in, and I said, look, I told the state of Arizona, I said, look, my kid is at risk. I'm afraid. These men have said, because at this point it was so hard to even really look for my daughter. And let me explain why. Because I can't broadcast like every other parent, my child is missing, my child is missing. Because there are predators in jail that are looking for my child, that are asking people that are free to look for her. So I was very scared about raising this flag that Anaya is missing, and we don't know where she's at, and that's going to inform everybody she's on the street. Okay, she's on the street. Parents don't know where she is. Let's go find her. So when they did find her, I was so happy. I said, look, put my daughter somewhere she can't run. And they were like, we can't lock up the kids. We can't really lock them up. We have to, if we do lock them up, then we have to review it every 60 days and see what's available. I said, look, if anything, my daughter should be in witness protection, because she's a victim in a high profile sex trafficking case, and they've been threatened, and she's a temporary custody of you all. So if you can't lock her up for her own safety, then witness protection her. Oh, that's not an option. They gave me the runaround with that. And then they finally came back and said, okay, well, Anaya, she's approaching her time to end out of the juvenile. They're looking for another placement. I kept pushing back on a place that needed to be secure, a place that needed to house her. And so they said, okay, we're going to fish the line out here in every place that can take a child of her demographic, meaning her age, her the situation with her being sex trafficked. We're going to reach out to them, because Anaya had now been through about 8 group homes, and they were running out of places to put her, to house her.
Well, Sharika, also during these times, was Anaya on any drugs or had any mental stabilities during that time? Because an influencer on drugs who want to get that fix that they need or what have you would also run. So was she on drugs? Did they drug her up during these times?
Well, when I found out Anaya was in a hotel room and had been sex trafficked again, I asked them to drug test her
Mhm.
because I didn't understand what made her take the phone and run. I didn't
Right.
get it. And they were talking about the marijuana back at the group home. So I was like, let's just see what's going on. And she did
Mhm.
test positive for marijuana and cocaine. And so that
Gotcha.
was a whole new ball game. It brought in a whole new
Yeah.
items as whereas I said also to the judge and to DCS because they kept pushing back on locking her up. And I didn't
Mhm.
want her locked up in a jail facility. I wanted Anaya locked up in a rehab facility or a
Exactly.
facility for
Exactly.
girls that she could have therapy, a behavioral
Mhm.
health or mental health. And so at this point, when we got the results that she tested positive for cocaine and marijuana, I then
Mhm.
asked the judge to order her into substance abuse and I ordered her into substance abuse counseling,
Mhm.
basically.
Mhm.
Court order her into drug
A
addiction
rehab center so that she can
rehab.
get help for
Exactly.
her addiction. Mhm.
Exactly. And so this is the place that they identified was Devereaux. And it's here in Scottsdale, Arizona. And it's a
Mhm.
behavioral mental health center that is also a rehabilitation center that was supposed to be able to address the substance abuse as well as the sex trafficking trauma and the
Mhm.
conduct.
Mhm.
And so they understood who they were retrieving and
Right.
all of the issues that I had, and they
Mhm.
were supposed to establish a plan to address those things. And so Anaya
Mhm.
um, was admitted there in October of 2019. So she spent from August to October in juvenile jail, and then in October she went to Devereaux,
Okay.
and
And
then
from Devereaux, how often were you able to hear from her after her being placed at Devereaux?
so after she was placed in Devereaux, I could talk to Anaya. I think it was 3 times a week.
Okay.
And they stipulated that a part of her treatment, it's a part of your access that you can have to the access outside world, and the people that are outside. They were able to have any visitors, and she was not able to leave the facility. And so she contacted me. She said, "Mom, can you send me some clothes?" So I packed up all of her clothes, put everything in luggage, because the state they shovel these children around from place to
And
place
trash
in
bags.
trash bags. And it's so
I hate that. I
disrespectful
mean, I
and
had a
it's so
friend who,
hurtful.
yeah,
Yeah. That I made it a point to always have luggage. We always have luggage anyway, but I made it a point that she wasn't getting anything in tote. She's not getting anything in a trash bag. We're packing
right,
it up in the luggage because she's not thrown away.
right,
And so
right.
I got her some luggage together, a whole bunch of jewelry and a whole bunch of stuff that I make that she really likes. And I got
Hmm.
to send her everything. And so the next time that she and I spoke, I said, Anaya, did you get your clothes? Did you get all your stuff? She said, yeah, Mom, I got them, but I can't wear them. And I go, why? And she said, well, they put everything in a big storage area. It's heated. It's supposed to sit there to get all, like, if you have bed bugs or whatever. She said, but also, I am not a part of she said, I have not graduated to the part of the program where I can have visitors or I can leave the facility or that I can even wear my own clothes. I have on
Oh, wow.
sweats, colored sweats like blue, burgundy, and I have to
Hmm.
wear the color that identifies with where I am in the program. I said,
Hmm.
oh, okay. So that's where she was. And when she and I spoke, she was in good spirit. She kept
Okay.
talking about being in healthcare and did the phlebotomy thing. And so what I
Hmm.
had done was I gathered all these books. My mom is a nurse. I was looking for Mosby's. I was looking for all these medical terminology books that I could send her. And I
Yeah.
got her a new Bible, and I sent her a book on Black scientists and inventors and doctors. And so that
Hmm.
she could just be inspired and she could have something to
Right.
read. And she it ended up getting lost in the mail. It was coming from Amazon and it got lost. And like a week later, I talked to her. She was doing good. She was in good spirits. And then I'll never forget on December, I think it was 17th or the 18th, I was at work and I was
Hmm.
actually doing a hiring event for my employer. And I received a call from her Anaya's probation officer that Anaya went AWOL. And I was like,
Oh,
what?
no.
And I'm like, what do you mean she went AWOL? They're like, yeah, apparently the Devereaux took them on a field trip to skating and she went AWOL from the skating. I'm like, what? I get up, I walk away from the table, I'm crying, I'm like I really couldn't believe it. So I tried to
Right,
call
right,
Devereaux and
right.
see if she was there. And they were
Mm-hmm.
like, no, she's not there. So I contacted DCS because this
Mm-hmm.
call didn't even come from DCS. They never notified me that Anaya was AWOL. It was her probation officer that notified me that Anaya was AWOL. And her probation officer knew because Devereaux, whenever a kid goes AWOL, they have to contact the police. And when a
Got
police
you.
report is generated on someone you have on probation, the probation officer gets an alert. So
Mm.
that's who told me. And I was like, I didn't know what had happened. I didn't know what went on. Until this day, I am trying to find out how did you even release, how did you even take my daughter skating? I never gave permission. State of Arizona, we haven't found anything in the records to support that they got permission to take her on an outing. And then I'll go back to what Anaya told me earlier on, which was
Right. That
I
she
am not
wasn't
at
at
the
that
program.
stage to
I was
go
not at the
anywhere.
stage to go anywhere,
Right,
and that
right.
makes sense being that she had only been there. She hadn't even been there a full 60 days.
Mm-hmm.
She got admitted October. She went on a run in December 17th or 18th, went like somewhere around there. So
Mm-hmm.
by her own admission, she was not able to go anywhere. How did she get on this trip? And then I'm very upset with Devereaux because ultimately you took my daughter skating, but you told me I couldn't even visit my child. You robbed me of my last visit.
Right, right,
And
right.
this is the problem with the state and the institutions that they send you to. They all think they know better than the parent. We tried to warn them about the phones. We tried to warn them about the access. We tried to
Yeah,
warn them about
yeah.
her not being able to leave and being able to go. And more
Mm-hmm.
things happened to Anaya on their clock than ever happened on me and her father's clock. Anaya was not sex trafficked when me and her father had custody. Anaya
Right.
was not on drugs when she lived with me. Anaya was
Mm-hmm.
not sexually abused and selling drugs when she lived with me. And she didn't run away when she lived with me. So
So after all of that, how long was it before then that you got any kind of call or notification as to where she was, or was she placed in another group home, or what?
no, the next time that I had heard about Anaya was that I had gotten information that she could possibly be in California, and that we had seen on social media, on her social media, that she was in California, and we had seen that she was in that area. So I tried to reach out to her father and have him like distribute flyers and go to San Bernardino to look for her and to find out where she was.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't successful with finding her, finding the people that she was hanging out with. We didn't know exactly who she was with or where she was. We just knew that there were people on social media saying that she was in the area. And so the next thing that I knew, my daughter, one of the people that told us that she was in social media told us that she was possibly arrested in San Bernardino. And so I asked my daughter to check into things and see, because he
Mm-hmm.
was under the impression that Anaya was my eldest daughter. And I was like, where are you getting this from? And come to find out, she was using my eldest daughter's name in California. And she had been
Oh,
arrested
wow.
in
Oh, wow.
California in my eldest daughter's name. And so when we went back and we looked, we verified Anaya had been arrested in California. And Anaya had been arrested, and they had held her in January for 24 hours in adult jail. They did
Oh,
not confirm
wow.
her identity, and they let her go. Because had they
So
confirmed
many
her
wrongs on so many parts. I mean, she is a child, 15 at the time, and in adult jail. Wow.
and she looks like a child, in the
Mm,
face. Anaya looks like a baby. And so
mm,
she doesn't even look like her sister. They
mm,
are well different in weight and proportion.
mhm.
I mean, my eldest daughter is like 5'7", 125. Anaya was like 5'4", 200 pounds.
Mm.
They're not even
Wow.
the same in stature.
Not even close. And
Not even
then
close.
there are
And they're not
different
close in
shades.
complexion. Anaya
Yes,
is
same
light,
complexion.
and
There's
my
different
my
shades of
oldest daughter is
complexion.
dark. They don't look
Yeah,
anything alike.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so to not even run her fingerprints and wait back, because had they done that,
Ah,
they would have seen This child is a missing
Wow.
child. She's on exploited children, and she has a warrant for her arrest. There were so many things that could have raised a flag where they could have held her, and she could have been sent back to Arizona. And so, just 4 months after that, my daughter was found on I-10 and Watson Road. She had been killed. The police don't know how she'd been killed. They found her with no shoes, no socks, no telephone, no personal items except for the item that she had on.
Sharika, in Arizona in the summertime, no shoes, no socks on pavement in Arizona where it gets to 110, 116 degrees in the summer.
Yeah.
That's kind of suspicious.
It's very suspicious. As I mentioned earlier, you know, my daughter was a lot of things, but she was smart. She was not by any means stupid. And so it doesn't make any sense. My children had months earlier, I took them to the mall, and they had purchased necklaces. And the necklaces, they say sisters when you put them together.
Yes, one of those hard ones that connect together, make the name. Okay.
I think it's not like a heart, but it's like written out, and it can like put it together.
Okay.
It's like a key. I think they're keys.
Okay.
And when after that, every photo of my daughter, you can see her with this necklace on, every single one. She did not take the necklace off. And she's a normal teenager. She liked carrying fanny packs. And every time I seen her, she had her fanny pack on, she had her lip gloss, and she had her cell phone. And this is like, this is a kid who we couldn't keep from a cell phone. And now she's not found with a cell phone.
Yeah.
And it's
something's wrong with that.
It's never been recovered. And no shoes. And so they said that, you know, they believe, they don't know, her cause of death is listed as unknown, but they believe that it could be because of lower extremities, blunt force trauma to the lower extremities of her left side of her body, which indicates that she could have been hit by a car or thrown from a vehicle. I personally believe that my daughter was on that highway, and I don't know the pretense of why, but I don't believe it was on her own recognizance. I don't believe that she was just out there walking. I don't believe she was hitchhiking.
No.
Especially without shoes. And if she was hitchhiking, then I believe that earlier that time she had been put out by someone in a vehicle, and maybe they ran her down. You know, there's so many scenarios that run through my mind. I'd like to know what happened. I'd like to believe that maybe she got into an argument with someone and she was on the road, and maybe they put her out the vehicle. I don't know. And somebody else hit her. Maybe they're afraid. I don't know. But we want closure. We want to understand what happened. And from what I understand so far, it's just suspicious.
Yeah. And a few months ago, the end of July or August, they put out a description, right, of some paint that they got from her body that may have been the color of a vehicle that hit her.
Yes. So they're basically saying they're 100% sure they've identified the type of vehicle that hit her, the color, the make and the model. The year is a range from like 2016 to 2018. It's a Honda Civic. It has a very unique paint color. It's probably nearly the color of my lips, my lips shade that I have on. It's like a shaded like purple. It's very deep, but I'm grateful for that piece alone. Having that piece of information is very important. And, the authorities continue to try to narrow down the owners of these types of vehicles and, who could have been on that corridor at that time driving the vehicle. They're looking into everything, anyone that has had their vehicle fixed,
repaired,
any insurance claims, any salvages. And so they're doing a really good, diligent job. And, this case has brought attention to the Department of Homeland Security for the sex trafficking that was involved for my daughter. Whatever was revealed in the subpoenas that they've issued out. I will say this: once my daughter died, every authority agency that was involved, they went and subpoenaed her social media records. And it was almost
which they wouldn't do at the beginning when she was missing, that you told them they could find her on social media.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And now that's the key piece, the key component. They're like, oh, we wish we knew where the phone was. I do too. But had you guys pinged it months ago, when she was active on social media, and I know you have this technology, I know you can do it, we
Yes.
wouldn't be here right now.
Yes. Yes.
And they also told me we need evidence of a crime. Well, I got on my daughter's social media. I see a guy on IG. He has phones. He has drugs. He's recording video. He's talking about she's with him now. I shoot it to the police. No action. But you see, my daughter is at risk with a male who has a gun, who has drugs, and you still can't go into the media pages. So it's
Wow.
broken. The system is
Wow.
completely broken.
Yes.
When we don't have parameters set up that will allow you to save your children.
That part. Yes, that is a true part. And I mean, we've heard recently as part of the whistleblower talking about Instagram and Facebook about how much that our young girls are being coerced and victimized by being on social media that nobody is watching. So definitely I understand the pain and the frustration about them not jumping on the social media, because the social media was a main component of her being transferred from place to place.
Absolutely. And if they
So
would have
Sharika,
taken some heed, we
right.
wouldn't be here, So I hope that, parents can voice and be in charge of, let's say authorities need to go into a child's page. Parents should be able to get permission. Go ahead. My child is missing. Go ahead and go into it, not without a problem, because this child is still a minor. So where is the parents' ability to protect their children in this virtual world,
That part is so true. That is an added component that I keep fighting for and trying to tell parents each time, we all trust our children. We do. But we have to make sure that we have the right page, not the page they want us to see, but the correct social media page for them. So with that said, you have now, in order to get justice for Anaya, you've started a nonprofit in Anaya's name. Tell us a little bit about that nonprofit.
Yeah, so we've started Justice for Anaiah Walker Foundation, and the foundation is set up to bring awareness to sex trafficking and adolescents that are involved in sex trafficking. What we like to do and what we're striving to do outside of bringing that awareness is to help the young girls who are in this lifestyle, and not just young girls, but anyone who has been a victim, to help them with areas of transitioning to independence. Because like my daughter, she was struggling. She wanted to be independent. She wanted to figure things out on her own. She thought that she could make some certain decisions and that she would be able to do things. She was heavily misled into believing that this was some type of job choice.
Right.
I remember having that conversation with her, and it was really disturbing, and it was like, this is not a job. This is not something this is not employment. And so,
right. And, just to say that, Sharika, a lot of these girls think that, after a while, they're not a victim. They're making a living. The Stockholm syndrome of these guys who get young girls, people are not realizing how strong this Stockholm syndrome is for these young girls. They believe that they're making a living, they're able to continue to do this job, and they will be okay. And it's not okay. They're getting the wrong type of love that they think is love, and the wrong type of guidance. And, as you see for yourself, they can get out of it, have an opportunity to be out of it, but they go back because nobody has really given them the resources to know you're much better than this. That's not what you should do with your life. There's more that you can do for your life, and actually have time to show them before someone else takes that control away from them.
Right. And that's what we hope to do with Anaya's place. So Anaya, before she died, she didn't have an idea that our family had made a large purchase of land that she was set to inherit with her sister. And so I still want to honor that. I still want to do something in her name. And what I've decided is that we will erect Anaya's place, which is a safe haven home for young girls. I would like to house 16 adolescents or more
Mhm.
But I'd like to house them in a safe haven area where they can identify and have therapy, work with sex trafficking advocates, work with their
Mhm.
social workers and their families and their loved ones to transition them back into a safe, healthy lifestyle.
Uh,
Somewhere they can go and they can have horse therapy, things that my daughter was into and that she really enjoyed. She had a horse that she adopted. She liked horseback riding. She wanted to do that. And so we want to take Anaya's land and we want to put a place there that where girls can come as a safe haven and have that sanctuary. And we're gonna give them the life skills that they need, workforce development skills, transitional skills, and we're gonna address the trauma and the issues that they have.
That sounds great. That sounds great. And you guys will be able to see the Anaya's Foundation, Justice for Anaya and Anaya's Place on our website that you can go and donate. You have any resources, things you want to donate that young girls may want to have. I'm sure that you're able and open to donations to be there at the house for it.
Yes, we're
Sharika, right?
looking for the donations and volunteers. If there's any colleges or universities that would like to partner with us for
Mhm.
internships, we are fully operating nonprofit, and so we're looking for anyone that has a mutual objective in our cause. So
Mhm.
if you'd like to reach out to us, certainly go to Justice for Anaiah Walker Foundation.org and you can contact us there from that platform and submit any of your donations, and we appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, Sharika, for coming here and sharing Anaya's life. And you guys, we want justice for Anaya. So if you're out there and you know anything about Anaya, or you know where she was, or where you saw her last, any information of any time that you saw Anaya during her life, please step forward and call your local law enforcement and tell them the information that you have. You just might could lead to an arrest. And of course, if your information that you give about Anaiah Walker's case leads to justice of arresting someone, you may receive a reward. So please get involved. If you know anything about Anaiah or where she was during that time span of her life, please call your local law enforcement. Sarika, I thank you so much for coming on and sharing Anaya with us, but we'll have you back because, of course, I am partnered with the Anaiah Walker's Foundation, and we will come back and show some of the things that you guys are doing in order to raise awareness for Anaiah Walker.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you
I
all.
appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Chandra. And I'd like for you to send me your information so that I can get you sent out the mug and the t-shirt that you can have. And we're going to send that to you. We want to get gifted. I want to make sure you're gifted this. And it just tells us to let's be the generation that ends child sex
Oh,
trafficking. So I
yes,
want to make sure you
yes,
get
yes.
that. And I want to thank you so much for bringing awareness to this and all of the work that you do. And like you said, your partnership with not just the foundation, but like you said at the beginning, my daughter reached out to you for help in finding and investigating this matter. And so we
Yes.
thank you a lot for the ability to come on your platform. And again, all the work that you're doing. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. God bless.
God
Thank
bless you.
you all for watching and stay tuned to next time.